there, I'm Sunshine Gray. I am a Christian counselor and life coach. And today, what I want to talk to you about is defensiveness. We all have a tendency to get defensive at times, but if you find yourself kind of in a pattern of defensiveness, then I'm going to give you some tips on how to stop being defensive. The first thing I want to point out is, what is defensiveness? Defensiveness is an emotion, but it's also an action. Sometimes we feel defensive, and then sometimes we act defensively. So what I'm going to talk about today is in the context of acting defensively. When we get defensive, what we're trying to do is protect ourselves. So our armor is going on so that we can deflect criticism or feedback that somebody is giving us. However, defensiveness is kind of ugly when it's played out. We can do it in different ways. This isn't an exhaustive list, but sometimes we just make excuses for our behavior or we justify our actions. Another way is through blame shifting, where we literally take the blame and point to somebody else. Other ways that we sometimes get defensive is by minimizing the person's feelings that's bringing the feedback or the criticism to the table. We might try to shut down the conversation or even divert the focus to past things rather than staying on the current issue. So what I want to do is help you get out of that pattern and shift to doing a new thing. So I've got a few tips I'd like to give you. The first one is practice the pause. When someone gives you criticism or feedback, that doesn't mean it's necessarily true. But if we automatically block it, then we're going to miss out on an opportunity to grow. So when somebody brings feedback to you, what I want to recommend is that you just pause. James 1:19 says, be slow to anger, slow to speak, and quick to listen. Just take it in. Maybe even ask some questions so that you have a better understanding. This way that you'll be in a better position to evaluate if there's truth in what is being said. The other thing I want you to do is, if you are pausing and you're evaluating there is some truth, I want you to just simply take responsibility. That means confess it. Hey, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. And then begin on working on doing a new thing. When we talked a few minutes ago about ways that defensiveness plays out, one of the things we talked about was how we have a tendency to be critical in response to the criticism that we're receiving. So refrain from the temptation to start pointing to that person's faults. No good comes from that. It just becomes a battle of defensiveness. I also want to encourage you not to judge their motives. When we get defensive, we might point to the why they're even bringing this up, but it's another way to deter from the topic that has been brought to the table. So resist the temptation to point to their faults or judge the motive of their heart. I also want to encourage you not to react. That's why the pause is so important. Pausing to hear what the other person is saying. When we react, we're putting our emotions in the driver's seat rather than letting logic drive. So when you're practicing the pause, it's going to help you so that you don't react in an emotional way. It's also really important to know your value. When we don't know our value, we become increasingly defensive because we don't want to believe anything negative about ourselves. But your value is not connected to what you do right, nor is it connected to what you do wrong. It's really important to get fully aware that your value is your value, and it's assigned by God, and you're made in God's image, and that's where your value lies. It's not going to be shaken on what you do or don't do. And then the final thing I want to say is reframe the criticism or the feedback. If we view criticism or feedback as a negative thing, we're going to respond in a negative way, and that's not good for growth. It's okay to fall short. You're made we're living in a fallen world, so we're gonna fall short. There's no way around that, I guess, is what I want to say. So let's not view criticism or feedback as a negative thing. Instead, let's view it as a positive thing. It's an opportunity or an invitation to grow and transform and become a better version of yourself. All right. Those are some tips on how to stop being defensive. I encourage you, if you are in a pattern of responding defensively, to begin to do a new thing. It's going to be good for you and it's going to be great for your relationships as well. I'll see you next time.